Welcome back. Nikki Haley is taking a softer stance on former President Trump's indictment. A flip-flop, if you will. On Monday, Haley called Trump reckless for keeping classified documents in his home, saying if the allegations are true, he, quote, put all of our military men and women in danger. In a radio interview yesterday, Haley doubled down on that comment, but then added that she'd also consider a pardon.
What's happening is unfortunate. I think the Justice Department has handled this whole thing terribly. I mean, you can't have one standard for Democrats like Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and then another standard for Republicans like Donald Trump. And we're seeing that again. And we're seeing that again with the Biden bribery recordings that have come to light. I mean, the country should never stand for that. And I think that we should all speak up and we have to be loud about that. Having said that, if the claims in the indictment are true, if they're true, then Trump was incredibly reckless with our national security, and that's not okay. So now if you've got the question of a pardon, I mean, that's a very different question. I'm not going to presume President Trump's guilt. I think we all need to let this trial play out. We need to see, exactly what happens. But, when you look at a pardon, the issue is less about guilt and more about what's good for the country. And I think it would be terrible for the country to have a former president in prison for years because of a documents case. That's something you see in a third world country. I saw that at the United Nations. So I would be inclined in favor of a pardon.
To recap, Haley's initial reaction to the indictment last week was to discredit the case, writing on Twitter, "This is not how justice should be pursued in our country." Then she came out strongly against Trump. Now, hey, maybe a pardon. Joining us now, political reporter for Axios, Alexi McCammond. Alexi, great to see you this morning. So let's talk about this balancing act that Republicans are trying to walk here. In this case, it's a pretty obvious flip-flop, but others are sort of suggesting, okay, maybe Trump did something wrong, but, it's still the Biden Department of Justice with their overreach. How are they trying to calculate this as they try to win Trump's supporters?
I mean, it's like they're playing to an audience of one, which is former President Donald Trump. Of course, his supporters support him in the way he talks about it, but I feel like you'd think the same. The supporters who like Trump and like what he's saying about this indictment aren't looking to someone else, to some alternative to defend him. They're fighting and writing with Trump and for Trump. And when someone says something like, oh, this is the weaponization of the DOJ, or the DOJ is corrupt against Trump, they're not really articulating to voters how that will help them, how the DOJ is supposedly weaponized against them, how this will improve their future. And yet candidates are, like Ron DeSantis and others, proposing things to completely gut and overhaul and move the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA. They're parroting Trump's talking points, but not getting any of the political benefit because they flip-flop and come up with all these jumbled statements that in the end, when you read them closely, don't actually make a lot of sense.
No, a lot of word salad. So there's also the idea of pardons have been injected into this. Like, it's become a litmus test. Hey, would you pardon Donald Trump if he's convicted? Vivek Ramaswamy is sort of at the forefront. But it's an interesting calculation there. Tell us what you think Republicans are doing.
Yeah, and one Republican strategist said the other day privately, Trump's best bet now is to basically step down and try to get a pledge from the other candidates to pardon him, which obviously he's not going to do, and they're probably not going to engage. But you're seeing more and more folks, Haley, Vivek, as you mentioned, saying, well, if elected president, I will pardon him. And that's so interesting because they're already jumping to the idea that he would be convicted of this crime and that they would be elected president. And to what I just said, they would use the powers of the presidency to vindicate President Trump, overhaul the DOJ, and continue this narrative that the entire justice system is weaponized against Republicans.
So a couple Republicans have said to me they think Trump's support this time around maybe a little softer than it has been in other times, and that some Trump supporters might be willing to explore another candidate just if they think like Trump can't win again, perhaps. But in order for Republicans to pull those supporters, they have to kind of be nice to Trump while they do it, because those Trump supporters simply won't stand for it if you really attack him.
So we just did focus groups last night in North Carolina, actually, and we talked to voters about the different Republican primary candidates' responses to sort of see, do they like the people who are pro-Trump, saying it's weaponized, or do they like the people who are sort of threading the needle while still being respectful of Trump? Mike Pence, Nikki Haley, Asa Hutchinson, Chris Christie, those folks who didn't directly attack Trump's character, but still said, this is a bad look for the country, or we need to follow the facts. people in those focus groups seem to gravitate more toward that because they liked that it was still respectful toward Trump and not attacking him, but still saying, look, something is up here and this isn't okay. And just because this Republican is this way doesn't mean we're all that way.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting message that the voters
that's going to be a trend to follow here as these indictments potentially pile up.
Yeah.
Political reporter for Axios, Alexa McCammon, thank you as always. Great to see you here.